Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
Hey, leader. Welcome. All right. So I'm laughing because we're going to talk about something today that makes me laugh and lights me up, because this is so me. And when Carol and I were talking and about, what we want to talk into, and she said to me, like, look, Carol, this is the thing that has literally changed everything for me and helped me work through my, perfection and my, as we call leadership, my looking good nerd, right? Like wanting it to look good. I think I may have shared this before. When I was after the burnout and I went to see the therapist and psychiatrist and psychologist and all the things, the guy asked me, do I experience perfectionism? Is that something I experience? And I looked at him going, no, what are you talking about? That's not me. I'm just very detailed orientated. That was my answer to him. I was like, I'm about, the details and all of these things, and, that it looks good.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in that moment. It was literally 6 months later, coaching a client. I had my light bulb moment of like, oh, yeah. Okay, that is me. Yeah, I do experience perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
And then we all experience it, right? We all do in some way, shape, or form, right? A lot of times perfection might come up as perceived judgment, right? Or like how, especially like with society and like what society says and what is appropriate and what is expected. And I will say, as a mom, it's like it's put like the fire does that make sense here? Like, it's just like the flame has gotten bigger as a mom. I'm so much more mindful of my internal dialogue around looking good and having
Do you have a good example of that?
One, and the external approval, right, of like being a good mom. And so most recently, where I am experiencing this is, Abby, I really want to empower Abby, to help her get dressed, right, for her to pick her clothes out, and we organize things so it's simple, it's easy for her. But lately, in the last week or two, she wants to go to school in her pajamas.
I love it.
It's the weather's changing. She loves her pajamas, especially, her Paw Patrol pajamas. And she got these other new pajamas. And so, I mean, that's what she's putting out for herself the night before. It's like, I'm going to wear those pajamas tomorrow. And I noticed like, well, what's everyone like? Are they going to think that she just got out of bed and went to school? Does she think like, all of these things that go in her head? And they're fresh pajamas, but still, like, it's just like, and it's so funny, right? Like, I laugh, like I am laughing about this, but I mean, this perfectionism can really impede on your ability to take action, on your ability to show up authentically, on your ability to even get results, because you can, we talked a couple weeks ago about overwhelm. Well, perfectionism shows up the same way and keeping you safe and there's something attached to that. Yeah. Right. Like, that's why Carol and I want to talk about this, because there's the neuro piece underneath the perfectionism.
That story that's running. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Carol, for our listener, like, what is let's unpack this, right? Because this is actually a really big thing. I know you and I encounter a lot with our clients, right? High performing female leaders. And this is something that does come up, and we want to help you break free from this, because like I said, I mean, I will eventually share with you like my number one biggest hack that's made a massive difference for me with this.
Yes, yes.
And it also shows up in all these different ways, right?
Yeah.
So why does perfectionism happen even in the first place? Like what is
Mm.
creating this perfection
Perfection.
in ourselves?
Yeah. I think, it really goes back to our childhoods, right? We talk often about the fact that our limiting beliefs happen typically, over 90% of them happen in the first 7 years of life, 0 to 8 years old. And then we carry them forward. They're serving us in some way. They're hidden in our subconscious where we don't always have awareness, and they're driving 95% of our daily decisions. And the important reason to understand this is perfection is a form of brain safety. So, what's brain safety? Well, we have this beautiful automated system, this subconscious system. And actually, the subconscious is in the body. We have neural networks throughout the body. So, this is not just neuroplasticity, it's cellular plasticity. We're integrated beings. And that one of the jobs of the brain is to keep this subconscious system safe, right? So, what safety looks like for the brain doing its job to protect this system is that it actually is thinking that whatever pattern or habit or normalcy we have in our lives is the way we are supposed to operate. This is the safety zone. This is, what we're supposed to stay within, these parameters. So maybe you have a daily habit of getting up and having a hot tea or a hot coffee. Your brain is going to work to protect that. And if you start to make changes, like say, for example, you want to get up in the morning and have a hot lemon water, you're going to meet some resistance to that. Brain resistance is the brain going, hey, this is not our normal pattern. So this is not safe, right? So in essence, our brains are wired more for safety than they are for success. And this is one of the reasons we have such resistance to change, right? So, when we're talking about any one of these things, it's really important to know that perfectionism is a form of brain safety. It is a way that the brain keeps us over here in the safety zone rather than getting to our goals and our vision and our growth and our leadership and our wealth and our productivity and all these things we talk about here, that are things that make us uncomfortable, right? And we've even talked about the tension of that. Is it really a comfort zone over here? It's important, though, for you to recognize what's going on. And that's why we're bringing this up. Because when we experience perfectionism, it's a form of fear, it's a form of anxiety, it's a form of, for me, I don't look good enough. It's a form of we don't have the approval of the people that we love or that we want to receive approval from, the approval of others, the external rather than the internal of our being and who we are. And, we're going to share some really important hacks here, some really important solutions for you to know exactly how to work through this. For example, when Abby's wanting to wear her pajamas to school, it's like, oh, well, I have the approval of the teachers and the school administration. What about the other classroom parents? Are they going to see me and judge me as a parent? What's she doing? Why is she allowing her child to get away with anything she wants? If it, depending on what's in alignment with your values, but picturing ourselves receiving judgment, right? And having experienced judgment and having experienced those who have told us, that's not possible. Why are you thinking that's possible? It's not meant for you. And there are too many risks associated with that. So for me in my brain, I go, oh, if I'm going to do this because I'm, a leader and I want to take this action, make it happen, it's got to be perfect in order to meet the expectations that other people have put on me around, what it's going to be like or how it's going to hook or how it's going to work or, do you feel like you're going to fail? Right. I
Well,
certainly have. Yeah.
and you know what and having worked with like, into the thousands now of high achievers and performers
Yeah.
is that when we get to the root of this approval piece,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's your own expectation, right? We run
Yes.
around thinking that people have this high expectation, but the reality is it's actually
Yeah.
us. We're the ones setting the expectation on ourselves. We think that everybody else around us has this super high expectation of ourselves, but in
Yeah.
reality, it's really us. And so we are setting this bar so high to the point of being unrealistic in a sense,
Hmm.
because we're constantly, which is there's nothing wrong with that's why we're high achievers, right?
Right.
We like that, and there's a cost to it.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's why we're so passionate about this episode, to support you in not experiencing those
Yeah.
costs any longer, to work through it, and and
And how not
just
to get caught up in that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One, and this is a beautiful opportunity to also like reiterate, and we should talk about this all the time about our brains, right? Are constantly scanning for, am I safe?
Yeah.
Am I loved? Right. So think about it. You're
And
gonna
am
do
I
something,
worthy? Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if it's not good enough, then will you be safe? Will you be loved? Will you be accepted, or will you be judged? Right? Am I
Right.
worthy? Right?
Right.
Is it good enough? Are people gonna judge it? Same idea. Are we gonna get the validation, the approval that like, yeah, great job? Or are you gonna receive criticism?
Yeah.
Right. So again, you're scanning that, right? And then the safe and secure, right? If
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there in a position where you're vulnerable, where people could judge you or
Mhm.
reject you, again, brain's gonna go safe, woo, back,
It's
right,
so
back in it. And
true.
so it's really understanding that, and like, okay, what is coming up? Where is my brain keeping me safe at this moment? What is the risk that it's assessing here with
Yeah.
whatever it is that I'm doing, and lean into what is coming up. And that's why I'd say, as a parent, I know, like, I really see it, and it's like, okay, what
Right.
you
Yeah.
know
It's
in
like
this
it's pointing a
situation.
spotlight on where it comes
Yeah,
up, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, see, I'm eager. I want to go into this, that one, the sentence we wrote earlier of like, at least something that's really supported,
Yeah.
which was, if I'm not doing it perfect, then what?
Yes. Yes. If it's not perfect, then is everything going to fall apart, right? Is one of the things that comes up for me for sure. If it's not perfect, then I won't receive the approval of those around me. If it's not perfect, then what do I think about myself? Am I in self beat up? If it's not perfect, then it's not going to be good enough for the world. It's not meant for me. All of these things that come up. And I think you said something really important about perspective, our own perspective, and how often I notice that when I'm thinking about experiences of words spoken over me, I've given away my power when it
Mhm.
really does have to do with my perspective. One of the things that comes to me that I bring to remembrance is our mentor. She had, let's say, an auntie in this case, that every holiday she was questioning her. What are you doing? But she could feel the energy of a negative agenda behind the question. She could feel the judgment. This was her perspective. And as she learned the tools and started to make the shift in her own life, she started to be able to not give her power away and realize that hurt people, and that this was the perspective of this auntie, if you will, that was she was bringing her own judgment to the party, yes, and but rather than trying to meet that expectation and receive that approval, she had a powerful shift, didn't she? Which is what we're leaning into here. And so it's important to recognize that you do have tools and possibilities to know exactly how to deal with these situations when they come up where other people are putting their expectations on you and not drawing that into your future.
So Carol, I love to start with for you, what is your sort of go-to to support you to move through perfectionism and help you get into action?
For me, it's definitely done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Being okay with it being messy has freed me up to have courage and be willing to fail, right? And I look at that as first attempt in learning. Whereas, with a lot of the rules and things I grew up with, that wasn't okay. And even the system in school can invite that where you're constantly trying to achieve the top status or get the A's or you know for me it was that situation. It's not the case for all of us, but I was receiving that message that this is what's important, this is what you have to do in order to succeed in life. And I'm here to tell you it's not true. It is not the truth. And it is one of the things that, for me, being okay with done is better than perfect, I have accomplished way more than I ever thought possible by leaning in, celebrating the failures I've had. Yes, the failures, celebrating the failures, celebrating the breakdowns, and not just because I knew breakthrough was on the way, but because I was learning and how valuable, starting to recognize that things are meant for me, not to me, totally shifted my perspective. So I really feel like that has been one of the number one things for me, is that done is better than perfect because it's kept me growing and on pace. And oh, yes, I still deal with perfectionism. I am a recovering perfectionist. It definitely comes up, but that's one of my chief tools. What about you, Alex? I can't wait to hear.
Well, so it's similar. It's the done is better than perfect. And the thing that I added on to that is setting a timer.
Yes.
So especially if I do happen to notice that I'm like
Yeah.
finding myself in this spiral, I'm like done's better than perfect. Set a timer, give myself this much time to, you know, fix something or work on something or whatever it may be. I mean, even put an outfit together, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then after the timer, I'm done, because I definitely find you can easily go down these rabbit holes. And then, you look at the time like, oh my goodness, where'd the time go? And so
Yeah.
it's embodying. I mean, I had that done is better than perfect on a sticky note on my computer in my office for the longest time until it became automatic, right? Talking about the
Yeah.
pattern interrupt, like I would stare at it. So I was like, right, done's better than perfect to train my brain. And then adding the timer, right? Like,
Do you have a
you know,
recommendation for like how to even set the timer? Because I'm thinking, wow, this is super practical, but like, I mean, I can see it's adjustable. Like if you're trying
yeah.
to get out of not being able to pick out an outfit versus, automating your business or something
Yeah.
like that,
Like, I mean, so part of it is like, is being super specific with what the task is. So,
Yeah.
you know, I will say, I mean, it really based, my average times, I mean, it's probably 5, 10, 15. Is what I give myself. And like
Mm.
those kind of categories. I wouldn't say, um, I mean, it's not that I don't use the half hours. I mean, I use timers a lot. So it really
Yeah.
depends on like what I'm working on. But I'll say for like the done is better than perfect. A lot of times, it's reviewing or whatever, or creating something. It's just,
Yeah.
I think my go-to is 15. Let's just say my go-to is
Mm.
15 minutes on
Yeah.
average. That's what I'll go to. Obviously, if it's like, I don't know, I'm doing hair or something, it'll be 5 minutes, right? Because I
Yeah.
don't want to spending 15 minutes on hair or whatever it may be.
That's
So
super
it is
helpful. Yeah.
it is like really like, because I mean, you also kind of know.
Yeah.
I think intuitively, like, okay, at this point, this is like, I don't want to be spending more time than this. So that has been a huge thing, is the
You know
having
what
that
it,
done has been perfect on the sticky
um,
timers with
what
that.
it reminds me of actually is shout out to Hal Elrod that because he recommended a 5 minute timer when you're really, really upset. And I
Hmm.
thought, no way, there's no way that something that I might have stewed over for
Yeah.
a day or something. 5 minutes is not nearly long enough. Oh my goodness, when you put your focus on that for only 5 minutes, it seems like an eternity. At least it has when I've experienced doing that. And so I think this is incredibly helpful because it's so practical, right? Okay, I can
Hmm.
set a timer and I've got this amount of time to get this done. Done is better than perfect. Do it messy, just make it happen. Be willing to have the first attempt in learning, be willing to have the courage to put it out there and do it. And I've been seeing you do that lately. And I'll leave it up to you to share one of the ways that you are doing this in your life right now, but it's been really powerful and encouraging, inspiring to watch. So,
Well, and I think
you know what I'm
that
talking about? Do
well,
you know what I'm
I've
referring to?
been more
Mm.
visibility, right? I've increased my
Yeah.
visibility. I had, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
visible with the podcast, but I hadn't really been on socials much. So I shifted that a lot. And this kind of ties into sort of something else that another, hack, and this is really
Yeah.
the neuro part is one thing is, our brain, as I said earlier, is always collecting evidence. And I've
Yeah.
been stretching myself, challenging myself. Same thing with the done is better than perfect, putting myself
Yeah.
out there, running these experiments, you could call it, to show the brain that nothing bad happened, right? Because that's literally
Yes.
what's happening. Our
Yeah.
brain's telling us this story, which is keeping us in this perfectionism loop, and we're
Yeah.
not taking action unless we're interrupting the pattern with done's better than perfect timers and things like that.
Yeah.
But also to be able to just to again put yourself out there. And so that's
Yeah.
I'm just showing up as my true authentic self, right? Leading from the heart.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, Abby, if that's you want to wear pajamas to school today, okay, wear pajamas to school today. And seeing that nothing happened, she
Yeah.
wore pajamas to school today, like, and everything's fine, like. And so it's just like collecting, like, that's how our
Mhm.
brain, it's collected evidence for however long, supporting the thoughts
Yes.
that aren't serving what you want to create. And now it's time to collect the evidence that shows you that, guess what, you
Yeah.
don't need to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. And
Mm.
to release yourself from being like feeling this
Yeah.
need to be perfect, so that it is easier. There is more flow, there's less stress, and you just get to enjoy life. Like, it's just tapping into more joy,
Do
because
you
when you're not in those spins,
spins?
you are ultimately happier, right?
When you're taking those action steps, do you recommend taking mini steps or baby steps or like how do you implement these action steps?
Related specifically to, sorry, I know I said a lot of stuff there, Carol, so I just want to make
Yes.
sure I'm speaking into exactly
Yeah,
what you're referring to.
so like when you're talking about letting go of the perfectionism and being able to build your confidence out of that, like is it like I know for me it's like the Pareto principle. It's small
Mhm.
changes bring big
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted you to speak into that.
Yeah, like it is. It's one small action, at a time, right? It is the compound interest of
Yeah.
that, right? And just
Mhm.
little things. And sure, if you're feeling a little braver some days, you might take a bigger action, but it really is here's the last thing I think that we can lean on before we
Yeah.
wrap up here. Because this has been the biggest shift with absolutely anything.
Hmm.
It's intention over mechanism.
Yeah.
All the little things that are leading to the perfection are the mechanical pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by shifting into the being, right?
Mhm.
Like the intention, like the vision, like this has been something that I have just been so grounded in
Yeah.
myself for the last little while, which is
Yeah.
really supported me further. And so when I think about the situation of, okay, the pajamas at school, for example,
Yeah.
um, that is a mechanic because we get dressed, we go to school,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
what's the vision? The vision is empowering my daughter to use her voice and use her self-expression and
Yeah.
being confident. She's not bothered about that. And so I
Yeah.
asked myself in the moment of like, which is the lesson I want to share here?
Yeah.
She's clothed,
Yeah.
she's warm. And honestly, sometimes I don't, you can go look at pajamas. Are they pajamas? Are they clothes? Like you can't even
Yeah.
tell the difference. I know they are,
Yeah.
but like maybe nobody else does. And so
Yeah.
it's that it's how do I want to raise my daughter is based
Mhm.
on that vision. And that's in this particular situation is like where I'm leading into that. And that's the
Yeah.
question I'm asking myself more and more. And I feel like, Eric talked about this on his episode a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
And again, it's the vision of what it is you want to create
Yeah.
and just be
Your
so grounded in
why,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Your why is
And
so powerful.
and perfection oftentimes has us spinning and
Yeah.
it keeps us safe, it keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
And we're then not out there making the impact, or we're not going live, or we're not saying the thing, or we're not being visible because we're
Yeah.
we're we're so worried and afraid of what people will think of us, and the judgment piece and the rejection, and will we be accepted.
Mhm.
But if we're not out there,
Yeah.
we're not making an impact. And so
It's
yeah, that
us
would
judging ourselves, really, is
yeah,
what it is.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
love these. I love these points. These are just really powerhouse solutions for us to be able to move out of that perfectionism piece, recognizing that it is brain safety, that its job is to keep us stuck and back rather than growing and thriving. And knowing that these solutions exist, understanding what's available to us, how we can put them to work, why it's so important. Done is better than perfect, right? Being able to use a timer. So you've got this much time. You're not in time scarcity in this case, but you're in the mode of taking a specific action, right? And then letting go of the approval of others, knowing that the internal approval is what's powerful, and being able to not be stuck in the mechanics, the details, being able to think about your vision and what your important goal is in the example of what you want your daughter to experience in school. And is her wearing her pajamas to school one day going to interfere with that? How old is she now? She's 4, right?
It's four, and this is preschool, right? I mean,
Yeah, so
it's
the
preschool. It's
world's not going to fall apart if she goes to school in her clean, precious pajamas. And understanding, what's the important thing, understanding it's not one of the ways I used to think of this is it's the substance over the form. The form gives us structure, so it can be important to make the substance bloom, like having a rewiring process, for example. However, it's really the why, the substance, the mission, the vision that are what keep things moving forward and keep us out of the perfectionism and being able to achieve the results that we desire to achieve and create the reality that we want to create. So we're so excited that you came and listened with us today. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. And we would love it if you would share this with people. We would love to be able to impact more and more of you. And please check our show notes for information on the free gifts that we have available for you. We're here for you, and we're so excited to see you be able to live a life of freedom, of joy, of fulfillment and satisfaction, and true leadership that impacts everybody around you. Any final thoughts or words, Alex?
no, just that we're always about you being unleashed and unstoppable. So hit subscribe, leaving a rating or review. And there is the ability to text us also in the show notes. So I'd love for you to text us. Let us know what landed for you in this episode, what's going to support you in, getting out of the perfection and into committed action. And we will see you next Thursday.
Be unleashed and unstoppable. Bye. Ciao for now.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.